And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore Podcast, where we never sit out. I'm your host, Matthew Dawson, joined today, as always, brother and co-host, Chris C.D. Dawson. How are we doing today?
Fantastic. A little steamy here in Chicago, but you know what? I'm storming
Yikes.
through it. We love it. Just excited for to talk some college football today.
Yeah. Now, if you're really from Shag Town, you're going to say, well, is really Evanston? Is that Chicago, mate? Well, I'll tell you, it's not.
Fortunately,
Unfortunately, though, it's large enough on the map, especially right now. We don't talk about Evanston, Illinois very often on this show. In fact, I don't think we've mentioned them a single time, which is kind of crazy. But here we are in July.
unfortunately, we will,
Yeah. Here on July 9th, 47 days. Now, when this comes out, it'll be 46 days until college football starts. I'm pumped. We'll talk some more about week 1, week 0 action. But let's get started recruiting news. It feels like every day we turn our heads and there's another big bomb drop. Bama got a couple guys. Georgia. I mean, everyone's Georgia Tech. I mean, it feels like everyone's going pretty good right now. So I got some questions for you, but I want you to CD give us a scoop. Tell us what's going on.
So the big one over the weekend, it was a rather quiet weekend, considering what we had last weekend, right? With July 4th was crazy, obviously. The big fish to fall today this weekend was Benedict Ume from Old Evans in Connecticut. He's a top 100 edge. A lot of teams wanted him badly. They were offered him early on in the process, and ended up being Stanford, right? Going across the country to pick up, that freaky edge. It's interesting to see that the Northeast part of our country is starting to produce more top end talent, which is awesome for the ACC. The thing is they got to start locking them down, and they just let Stanford come in from the top rope across the country and pluck one of the best players in the country out from under them. Illinois going cross country to Arizona out west. They got a nice running back, Khalil Valentine. He had a cool commitment thing with his dog. That was nice to see. The state of Georgia had a nice weekend. Georgia Tech, how about them? Brent Key up to number 22nd in the class with Troy Stevenson, bringing in a 4-star athlete, Georgia Tech with them. The Georgia is the talk of the weekend because of how big their O-line is. I mean, they have 6 commits on the O-line, 6, and the average height is like 6'6", 6'6.5", and they're all over 300 pounds, and they're just obviously freak athletes ready to play day one, like they always do over in Georgia there. So yeah, they had Nyler Daniels and Marquise Easley added to their class. Vandy, shout out Vandy again. They get a nice safety over some Dante Carter had some nice safeties. They're up to 33rd in the country, which is good for them. Jalen Big Play Watson, that's his Twitter handle. Jalen Watson is an athlete, listed as an athlete, played wide receiver in high school, but going to be transitioning to defensive back when he committed to Iowa. We'll see what they can do there with the former wide receiver. And then I want to talk about David Stone here. I don't know anything that you guys don't know. I don't know, where he's trending, where he's going, but I am seeing a lot of stuff about Michigan State, and I think that is awesome. And now I'm not a big Michigan State fan, but I think that'd be really, really cool. They did get the last official visit with him at the end of June, and that does matter, right? And I know everyone else wants him. They had a nice pickup, Nick Marsh, we talked about last week. But yeah, David Stone to Michigan would be huge, and that'd be awesome. Michigan State, I'm sorry, but we'll see
Guys
what goes
like
on that recruitment.
Yeah, guys like him and Nick Marsh are what could save Mel Tucker's job this year or next.
Well, when they go 4-8, 5-7 again this year, but they do have a top 15, top 12 class with David Stone and all those guys, it's gonna be hard to fire him. I know that huge buyout, so we'll see. But then Bama had 2 nice commits today. I know you were interested in talking about them. I'll start with Xavier Brown, 4-star cornerback from California. A nice pickup for them. And then they got a freaky linebacker, off-ball linebacker, I believe, is Justin Chronowoko, I believe. He's kind of talking the town right now. He's from Germany. He was committed to Maryland, I believe, just decommitted. He's technically only 100th in the country. Or I'm sorry, 1,000th in the country, but that rating will rise. He dominated at all the camps he was at this summer. And I'm sorry, my alarm is ringing there. That's unprofessional, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably just
Anyways,
a nice news drop from Gophers football. Someone insider
exactly.
giving you feedback.
Exactly. But yeah, he'll rise in the rankings. And then today they also picked up a 2026 offensive lineman, which is that's kind of crazy that we're already there with this guy's a freshman in college, just had his freshman year, or a freshman in high school. He got an offensive lineman, but he's actually teammates with an elite quarterback in 2026. I think it's Julian Lewis is his name, the quarterback. So who knows about that? But it's also 2026. You know, you can that a verbal commitment today barely means anything, and a verbal commitment 3 years from now means just about nothing. But yeah, they're working hard to add to their class. They've got a really good average, right? They only have 12 commits, but they're third in the country in average with a 93.2 over on the composite 24/7 rankings. But they only have 12 commits, right? And Georgia, Ohio State are all close to 20. Georgia's got 26. So a lot of these teams are a lot ahead of them. They're only 14th in the country right now, which is pretty good considering they only have 12 commits. But they're gonna look to finish their class. The thing is, they can be a little bit picky this year because they did have that elite recruiting class last year with a lot of numbers in it. So it's not like they have a ton of scholarships to go around. All those scholarships kind of like the cap limit in the NFL. Now you can the good teams just kind of rearrange it whenever they want. But yeah, they're doing their best to flip to Marcus Riddick from Georgia. He's a linebacker there, 5-star. But Auburn, I know, is also trying real hard too. So we'll see what happens there. Who knows if it'll be an elite class like it was last year, or like Georgia and Ohio State are trending to right now. Even Florida is looking real good. But they got their guy in Julian Sain, which is the biggest deal there. They're also working hard to get Chris Cole. They just made his top 8, which is whatever. It's top 8, but he's a top 100 linebacker. I know they want pretty bad too. But yeah, that's recruiting so far.
Yeah, it just my questions. It was mostly going to be like, do you think that this can be? Because like I don't know the last time that Bama finished outside the top 5, right? And they do have 3 5-stars. It feels like they're not going to take as many kids in this class. A lot of the remaining 5-stars are not trending in their direction, with the exception that they could be flipping some guys. I know that there's a lot of other guys in their radar. They're targeting some other top 100 players. Is there a chance that this falls out of the top 5, like recruiting class wise?
I'll say that I wish I could give you an answer. It's kind of too early to tell, right? It is, yes, a lot of like people's classes are mostly made up, but the rankings are going to fluctuate based on the players. The players rating itself is going to change as well. And we know not that the Bama bump is something, but it does happen where you do see Bama's guys like Julian Akronawoku that's gonna get a nice bump, and that will add to their points, obviously. It all depends on how much they take, really. If Saban wants a top 5 class, he can get one, but it
crazy.
is, yeah, I know, right? But they're gonna have to battle Michigan. They have a nice class right now. Florida's not done yet. USC is not done at all. A&M, we know they love to close hard. LSU and Tennessee are not far behind. Texas is making their run right now. They're up to 19th. Remember last week or 2 weeks ago they were up 50. So
and they're gonna be a top 5 class. That'll be
probably
that'll be my prediction. That'll be my one recruiting prediction, right? Because you're the recruiting guy. Even though I follow it pretty intensely as well, but Texas will be a top 5 class by the end of this year. That hurt to say that, but that's just what it is. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
So if you got guys like Florida, who is going to take, they're going to take probably close. They'll be closer to 30 than they will be 20 in terms of the number of recruits that they take at the end of the cycle. Yeah. I think Ohio State's going to have a crazy amount of recruits. Georgia's going to have a crazy recruit class. Michigan, Notre Dame's still climbing. I think LSU, Texas, like there's a chance that Bama finishes behind a lot of these guys. So in my eyes, it would just be pretty crazy if I saw Bama slip out of the top 5.
Well, I'll tell you, this is the class that I'm comparing this to right now is that 2018 class, right? Every year, the past like 15 years, you've seen Nick Saban and Alabama in the top 2, top 3, right? They don't, but that 2018 2018 class, they struggled, and they only ended up fifth, but they only ended up fifth, right? Which to them was a big deal. And Georgia and Ohio State had monster classes. Texas actually was third, if you believe that. But they still had a score of 289, which right now would put them at second ahead of Ohio State. And 289 will be a good class, probably good enough to finish the top 6, top 7 for sure. But
289 gets you 289 gets you fifth in last year's class.
Yeah. But I'm looking at teams right now that the hard part is, like we were talking about this earlier, was like, where do they come from? Where do these commits come from? And because you're looking at their prospects right now, a lot of the top end guys are not trending to them. And I know they'll close hard. They always do. Guys will get flipped, and obviously people will come out of nowhere and become, top 15, top 25 players for Alabama. But we'll see. I'm excited. It's interesting. It's cool to see, Michigan in the top 4, Notre Dame at 6, Penn State and A&M in the top 10 too. Stanford, we talked about at 13th, which is awesome. But yeah.
Yeah, I just thought, I don't know. Because like that 2018 Alabama football team was a very good team. I mean, they won a
national championship.
They won the national championship. This year's team might not do that, right? And if they finish outside the top 5 and they don't win a national championships, like then where does that leave them as a program in terms of like where they were even just a few years ago, which is crazy. It's like, oh no, they didn't win the national championship and they finished just outside the top 5. What are we talking about here? But we're talking about other teams gaining ground is what we're talking about. So does that mean the dynasty is over? No, that's not what that means at all. That's not what we're saying, but we're saying it's just weird. That's why I wanted to point it out. It just feels weird if that was the case to see that.
Yes. And what I will say is it is hard to stack elite classes. We saw A&M 2 years ago had a monster class, right? And then last year, they still had a really, really nice class, but it was not anywhere near selective is the word. And that's what Alabama is right now. If you look back to 2017, right, the year before they had that down recruiting year in 2018, in 2017, they had the best class of all time at the time, right? They had 29 commits. They were first overall by a large margin. And that class was Najee, Alex Leatherwood, Dylan Moses, Judy, Smitty, Ruggs, all those guys, Jedrick Willis, Tua, Xavier McKinney, all these NFL dudes, right? And they saw them play as a freshman. And so it was just, it's just like, it's hard to do that, But
right, absolutely. All right. Thanks for the recruiting rundown. Let's talk, Evan. Let's go back to Evanston, Illinois. Let's talk Northwestern. So, what is going on over there? So, allegations, former player from Northwestern, okay, detailed allegations to Northwestern administration, right, like higher ups. And these allegations were taken seriously by Northwestern, right? And some of these include physical abuse, sexual abuse, rights. There was a lot going on in these allegations. So Northwestern took to a third party, and they had a third party law firm come in and investigate these allegations. And it was just so odd to me, right? These investigations come out in November. Okay, now it's blowing up all of a sudden because student journalist at Northwestern, which by the way has a great journalism program itself. And these students did a fantastic job gathering this information, putting this article together. So 100% credit to them. It just feels like it's so weird that they gathered the evidence and there was a quote significant evidence leading towards these allegations being true, right? And Pat Fitzgerald's punishment was 2 weeks unpaid leave. So basically,
in a time in the offseason where it's July, they can't even have contact with the players.
No. So he's
like formal, like they have a limited amount of time with the players. Like, yeah.
His 2 weeks paid vacation just turned into 2 weeks unpaid vacation is what it became. I just now, of course, the university president today, right? 2 days ago is when all this stuff was coming out. Today, the university president, after pressure from just the public in general, he said, okay, maybe we didn't rule the right sanctions. Maybe we didn't have the right sanctions for Pat Fitzgerald. It just feels really, it just feels weird. It feels like they collected all the information, but it's not out there for me and you to digest enough what's really going on. Of course, the stance is, right, if these allegations are true, okay, he should be held responsible. Pat Fitzgerald should be held responsible.
If those are true, if those are found to be true, he will be without a job. Absolutely.
Yes, he should
There's
be.
no way Northwestern, a private that is well-esteemed, university will not. They will fire him on the spot, as they should. Absolutely.
Right. It seems like they're true. That's what their investigation came out like. Now, Pat Fitzgerald, the former players came out, or not former players on this team and previous teams, right? They came out with their own statement. They came together and put it out on Twitter, and they basically said that, well, one, the allegations were grossly over-exaggerated. They were misleading, and they basically the former player was lying essentially about a lot of this stuff that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
But the emphasis that they put on there was that Pat Fitzgerald has nothing to do with any of what's going on in the locker room in terms of like what would be considered those activities if they were true, which was a weird way to put that, right? Because they were like, the players came out and said, oh, these allegations aren't true. But Pat Fitzgerald
But if they were,
Pat Fitzgerald definitely would. He had nothing to do with it. So it's just so weird. And so I'm close to someone who's pretty close to the program there. And so one of the instances in the one that this person, right, his friend said that it was not to the knowledge of a lot of the recruiting staff, training staff. It's not to the knowledge of a lot of the staff. If there was stuff going on in there was note in there that, if players made mistakes on the field, right, they would go what's called running, right, in quotes, that's what they would call it, right? They're hazing, like, oh, who was on the running list? Who are they going to punish, essentially? And in practice, I guess there's a thing that Pat Fitzgerald does where, like, he if someone makes a mistake or whatever, and it's like, I guess he claps over his head, right? And that was noticeable at practices, right? And I think a lot of the younger players were really confused because I think some of the older players kind of adapted that as a way to signal whether someone was going to be run or not. At least that's what the story, it seems like. So to some of those players that came with allegations, it seemed like Pat Fitzgerald to them knew what it was, but it also could have just been these players running with some funky thing that Pat Fitzgerald does at practice and just making it their own thing. So it's all really, really interesting. It's not going to help them. I was just wrapping up my Big Ten previews, and spoiler alert, I was going to take the under 3.5 wins at Northwestern. And of course, right as I was wrapping up Northwestern's thing, I checked my Twitter and there it is. There's the article. And guess what? On every sports betting website, their over under win total odds just were taken off because everyone was probably pounding the under. And now it's going to go down, and I'm frustrated with that. But of course, I'm not here to capitalize on what is a very serious incident that's going on over at the Northwestern program. But this hurts a lot. This hurts a lot. If these are true, Pat Fitzgerald is a good coach. I know that they haven't won a lot of games recently, but it's hard to win games at Northwestern. It is. The talent pool in the Chicago area is actually better than what people think, but they don't have the resources to go out in the transfer portal. They don't have the collectives. It's a very small school. They just don't have the ability to go out and get big guys. So they have to hit on like a lot of smaller guys. Plus they lost a ton of talent this past year. They won one game and they had legitimately, 4 NFL players drafted this year. And that's crazy to me. And they won one game. They had 4 NFL talent players on their team and they won one game. None of them in the United States of America. So if these are true, I feel bad for the Northwestern program because that's a team that I always root for a lot. I've been to a game there at Northwestern Stadium.
Terrible experience, by the way.
Yeah, it's not
one of the worst atmospheres in college football. And that's not what we're talking about here. I just want to say that. But
it's pretty well. What stinks for them too is they get their first home games in September, but they start the curriculum late. So like kids aren't getting to school. The
And it's
students
not
aren't
like a
even.
public school where everyone's from in-state. It's a private school. That's
Yeah,
your international kids. You've got kids from all over. So yeah, that's why they go and play in Dublin
yeah.
last
That's why they
year.
go play in Ireland, or that's why they schedule all these road games like to start the year. So I don't. It upset me to hear that about Pat Fitzgerald. If this is true, now it also could it be true that he's responsible for these incidents, but also didn't know about these incidents? Yes, that is 100% what is likely actually the case of what is going on here. So I do think the university should take appropriate action, and if it is true, which according to their information, one, they should not just be giving him 2 weeks leave, right? He should be fired. It is what he should be. He should be legitimately fired. And I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's a take that a lot of people are on the side of. But then it's like who could they possibly get to take the Northwestern job? One, you're trying to change an entire culture, right? Essentially, that next coach is just a bridge coach to whoever you want to be there next because it's not going to be overnight. This is a huge blow to Northwestern, and like I said, it's a bummer because I'm always rooting for Northwestern, and I would like to believe that Pat Fitzgerald wants what's best for his players, that he wants what's best for his program. It just blows kind of that it got away from him. It sounds like so.
Yeah, I first of all, I hope this is all untrue because the bottom line is if you are a freshman or if you are a player on the team, you do not deserve to be treated like that. Absolutely. We've all been in locker rooms. We've all been in teams or offices or whatever environments. Hazing just exists, fraternities, whatever it is. Hazing exists to an extent. Obviously, there's a line that you should never cross, and it sounds like that was absolutely crossed and then some. But yeah, even if Pat Fitzgerald does not know what's going on, he does not know what's going on, and it's turned out to be true, you still have to take action because that's your responsibility. You've lost your locker room, you've lost your culture. That's not the culture you should be setting. And it does come back to him. It should come back up to him, and he should be punished for that. Absolutely. Um, yeah, it's a shame. It's a real shame. What's interesting is they should have the president, like you said, 2 weeks is stupid. It does nothing for Pat Fitzgerald. It's not a punishment, really. It's more just a publicity statement that's then going to get backfired onto them, where they're going to have to be pushed into making a bigger decision. They should have just said suspended indefinitely until they figure out what exactly happened. The thing is why wait 6 months? Investigate 6 months. What else are you going to find out? What are you waiting for the players to own up for it? Because that's not going to happen. And I don't know what else can happen. Like I really don't know. So
It
we'll
sounds like
see.
they have all of the information they need to make a decision, and they made a wrong one, or they just
Suspended
I
for
don't
a
know.
year or do something like remember with Sean Payton got suspended
Right.
for a year, like
And then he was fine, and
yeah,
also
and then he retired and then he got a
and
huge contract
yeah,
and
and then
then
now Kitchens still has a job, whatever. He was a head
yeah.
coach. So hey,
So
I mean,
well,
like in
like
this,
yeah, I was talking to Dad yesterday and he's like, or I was like, it doesn't matter for Pat Fitzgerald. He's gonna end up a very handsomely paid defensive coordinator, if he gets fired, which is a shame because yeah, I believe in second chances.
well, he'll go to Texas A&M. DJ Durkin gets fired because we love coaches
I,
with lots of controversial histories.
dude, I thought Alabama needs a defensive coordinator after this year. Probably Kevin Steele will, hang it up, and they love the reform coaches. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
the rehab for
yeah,
coaches.
he signed a 10-year, $57 million contract 2 years ago. So, and obviously, if he gets fired, it'll be with cause. So there will be no buyout. There will be no nothing. He'll lose all that. But like, it's not like this is it's a shame. And he's a guy people look up to. People think, oh, he's a top 15 coach, top 20 coach. Boy, he's on at Northwestern. He should be a role model for people. And it sounds like,
Yeah, and
doesn't look like
he
that.
has been the model for years of how to run a program.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah. Well,
so
he was huge, and NFL interest was big time there. People were waiting to poach him from Northwestern, but
yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. Well, let's move on. Last segment that we want to talk about today. just again, it's July. All right. Let's get
We're closing
excited
in.
about actual football games. All right. So I CD to come up with some games. I came up with some games. What are we excited? What games specifically are we excited for week 1 and week 0? Now we're not going to give you our predictions. That's not what we're doing. But we're here to just talk about what are we excited about. You know what? I'll let you go first.
Well, we'll start with week 0 here because that's what's coming closest enough. And usually week 0, there's never like a marquee game, nothing that you're gonna have to set aside your entire Saturday to prepare and wait for, right? But it is college football, so you should be sitting in front of a TV screen or be going to those games, right? The one I'm most interested in is actually the Hawaii at Vanderbilt game. I believe Vanderbilt went to Hawaii last year, and they kind of beat the piss out of them, didn't they? Vanderbilt is 18.5-point favorites. They're improving this year. I talked about their quarterback in our quarterback draft season that I think he's improving, and I like to see that too. They're recruiting well, so you'll see how that transfers towards the off season or to the season, the actual season. And then UTEP and Jacksonville State is a very interesting game. I believe that's a conference game, isn't it? Or is UTEP in the A's the American now?
No, that is a conference game, week 0.
Yeah, so welcome to the FBS, Jacksonville State.
But they're favored in that game.
Yeah,
Jacksonville State is
it's
favored.
at Jacksonville State, but they're still 2-point favorites, which is crazy.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me, which is unbelievable. I'm excited to watch the game because I do like seeing new teams. Like I've never watched a Jacksonville State football game live. I will say that I've never watched. Actually, that's false because didn't they give who did they give a run for their money a couple years back?
Did they beat Florida? No, that was Georgia Southern.
No, I think they either gave Miami or Florida State they gave someone a run for their money. I remember one year. It was down to the wire, but so I guess that's not true. So I've seen them play once. The game that I'm excited for week 1 that I think is going to be really telling for one particular team, Ohio at San Diego State.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
And what it's going to tell me, right? If Ohio beats San Diego State, now the Mountain West is not particularly good this year. In fact, I think they're one of the worst conferences in all of college football this year. I think the MAC, the bottom of the MAC is so bad. It's crazy, right? But if Ohio wins this game, right, their out of conference is still pretty tough. They play FAU, at San Diego State, and then they get Iowa State at home somehow. I don't know if that's a typo that I just made, but if that's true, that's pretty crazy that Iowa State's going on the road to play Ohio. But if they're over under win totals at 7.5, I think if they win this game, they'll be my favorite to win the MAC. I think they're a lot of people's favorite to win the MAC. Curtis Rourke is unbelievable, and you get in the backfield with Bandura. I mean, they're gonna have the best backfield in the MAC, not just in the MAC, maybe in all of G5.
Well, let's hope that Rourke comes back healthy. I know he tore his ACL and his meniscus last season. At the end of it, let's hope he's back to form. He gets one last week to rehab, which I know at that point in the stage of your ACL and your meniscus, very crucial stage. So we'll see. I hope he's back to 100%.
I think he'll be okay. He was the highest graded quarterback on PFF last year, which
MAC Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I look PFF and quarterbacks. I have a bad relationship with that because Tanner Morgan was a top 10 quarterback according to PFF last year.
Wait, last year?
This past year. Yeah, that I know. That's what I'm saying. So it's like I do trust it for defensive analysis, like run stopping. I do like its offensive line stuff that they come out with, but either way, it's still saying that Curtis Rourke is a good player. Their backup came in last year. He was solid too. So Ohio, I think, is just going to be a good team. It might be just down to them, Toledo, Miami of Ohio this year, but it could tell me that upper echelon of the MAC could actually compete against maybe some lower level Power 5 teams is what that would tell me, I think, if they were to win that game. Now, San Diego State's favored by 4, but at a neutral site, that means at a neutral site, Ohio San Diego State is close to even. So I'm pretty excited about that game.
I don't hate that at all.
I'm pretty excited. Yeah, but that's just week 0. I mean, obviously you get your Navy Notre Dame. Week 0 is just let's just watch football. Right. Sure, we're gonna get our Louisiana Tech FIU. Now is that a conference game? Yeah. Could be a good game. I don't know. But yeah, I think the week after that, starting on Thursday. Well, I know what game you're excited about, but I'm not gonna talk about that one. I'm excited to watch North Carolina State, and here's why. Brennan Armstrong. That's it. That's the only reason I'm gonna watch that game. I need to see what he looks like back in that Robert and I offense. I know UConn's not a fantastic team, but the line is only 16.5. So I think Vegas kind of likes Jim
They're
Morrow
playing
over there.
at UConn too, which is interesting to say the least.
Yeah, is that not a neutral site game? Is that
neutral sign?
I don't know, to be honest, but I mean, you could maybe check that. But
I'll check that out.
I'm really high on NC State this year. Look, Dave Doran is a dog.
Oh, they did a home and home. Sorry, they did a home and home. So
They did a
last
home and
year,
home.
NC State played, hosted Connecticut, not UConn.
Yeah. So I don't anticipate the defense is going to look really different because they lost a lot of guys. But I really am just excited to see what Brennan Armstrong looks like and not a terrible offense, because we've seen it before and he looks really good. And also Robert Anae is one of my favorite offensive coordinators in all of college football. So I just like watching him in their games.
Yeah, I mean, on that Thursday, the most intriguing game is probably Florida at Utah. But to be honest, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't really think it matters, because nobody thinks Florida's a national title contender. Even if they do lose to Utah, it does not give them an SEC loss. Even if Utah does lose to Florida, doesn't give them a Pac-12 loss. Doesn't really change things. You know a lot about Utah already. You believe in their coaching staff. Florida, we'll see, but I'm not going to judge them if they lose by 3 touchdowns at Utah in week 1. I'm not going to, I mean, obviously I will judge them, but it's not this. I don't expect them to go in there and get a win. I do think, and this is not homer bias, Nebraska at Minnesota is a very, very important game. Matt Rule, week 1, you're talking about big time Big Ten West implications with that game. The line's up to it's 7.5 right now. We'll see what the new look Minnesota offense looks like. We'll see what Matt Rule does with Jeff Sims and the new look Nebraska. People forget Eric Gilbert, right? Highly rated 5-star tight end is now in Nebraska. We'll see if he ever figures it out. But I do think that's a really, really intriguing game. I know Dinky Town in Minneapolis will be buzzing. We'll be boozed up. So to me, that's the one I'm going to be focusing on, taking the most away from, actually.
Yeah, I like that. Moving to Friday, Jeff Brom's first game.
Yeah,
on the road.
And Brent Key is the first.
Well, first game as like
official.
Well, yeah. Instead of the interim head coach, he's the actual official head coach. So 2 quote unquote first year head coaches. I'm excited about the game. I like Jack Plummer, Jamari Thrash. What? I think he's really good. I'm really excited to see him play. I'm really, really excited to see him play. Georgia Tech, they look, he lost a lot, but at the same time, I don't know how they won 5 games last year. I don't know how they did it. We'll talk about more in our ACC preview, but that's interesting. And then another game that I kind of like is Ryan Walter. His first game against Fresno State. So I'm pretty pumped about that game too. It's at Purdue. It's pretty.
Is that game Friday?
Sorry, no, that's Saturday.
It's Saturday.
Yeah, actually, sorry. I should have let you talk if you want. I mean, I'm not really excited about any of the other games going on that day on Friday, but
I mean, not so much to watch Hawaii again after watching them play Vanderbilt, but Stanford. They're only 10-point favorites in that game. I get they're on the road at Hawaii, but we'll see how Troy Taylor does in that first game with his new offense. They've had a lot of success recruiting already, but none of those players are going to be able to help them in that game. So we'll see what happens in the first game at Stanford. But yeah. Now we can talk about Saturday. Saturday is the big day, like
Saturday
it always is.
is loaded with storyline. I think maybe not. There's not a
Storyline's
whole
the
lot
right
of
word.
yeah. Storyline is the right word. I don't know that there's like a lot of like great games that are going to be going on this first weekend, but Dion, his first
Yeah.
game,
TCU. Colorado. That's Colorado at TCU. TCU is a 20-point favorite in that game. Dion with his brand new team going out to play, the runner-ups from last year in Fort Worth. So we'll see.
yeah,
Obviously, TCU, I don't expect Colorado to win that game, but I want to see how athletic Colorado is compared to last year and the years before that, going up against a pretty, respected a team in the Big 12, TCU.
yeah. I mean, I'm excited for Taylor Green. Oh yeah, but
There he
that
is.
yeah, playing against Washington. I'm also excited mostly because I think it's gonna be a good game because it was a good game last year. UTSA at Houston.
I
So
mean, Vegas says it's gonna be a good game.
yeah, it was a good game last year. So I'm excited about that game as well. I don't know. Well, I think I don't know where game day is or like where they decided to be, but if I was picking a place where it should be, um, now this is a neutral site game, so I don't love. Actually, I take that back. Maybe game day shouldn't be there because it's a neutral site game. I don't love game day at neutral site places, but you gotta believe that South Carolina, North Carolina is the headliner of the weekend.
Yeah, it's in Charlotte, by the way, for the
Yeah,
neutral site game, which is interesting because it's not far from either team, but it's a good location for it. I'm a fan, as you are, I believe. Don't play neutral site games. Play it. Those teams deserve to play. Those fans deserve, a home game.
season ticket
You know,
holders, come on.
yeah. An
Yeah,
interesting game that you mentioned briefly was Purdue, Fresno State at Purdue. Purdue's only 5.5. I know we talked about this last episode about, guessing the lines or whatever, but it is an 11 a.m. kickoff game. Fresno State has to go all the way across country, 11 a.m. Central Time. So it's 11 a.m. or 12, it's noon basically, and in local time there in West Lafayette. But that's still gonna be hard for them, right? To
right.
go
I,
across.
I agree. I want to ask you this. If you were to pick a place where college game day should be, where would you pick it for this Saturday? Because the headliner is obviously on Monday, right? Or sorry, Sunday.
Sunday. Yeah, that's where game day I believe will be. It will be there at LSU, Florida State. Now I don't know if it'll be on a Sunday or if it'll be on Saturday. Saturday, the crowd's gonna be kind of like I don't think the crowd will be as big because first of all it's in Orlando, right? So that's kind of it's hard. It's neutral site, and then it's also the day before. No one's gonna really be that bought in. But anyways, the most interesting game, I think UTSA and Houston is really, really, really interesting. Right, that's a conference game.
Yeah, but I don't think game day is going to be there. I think it'll be it. I think it'll be in Fort Worth.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad place either for him. But you could watch a very ugly game. That game could get ugly quick.
Right, right. Because I don't know. That I think is the most likely spot in terms of my eyes because they don't want to go to a neutral site place. Likely, I mean they could go to Charlotte, but I think it's not college game day. Then it's neutral site game day. Like when, um, I don't know, but yeah. All right, that's all we got time for today, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like this content, make sure to like, subscribe. Catch us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. Send us mailbag questions. I know we didn't get to any of them today, but keep sending those guys in at the Redshirt Sophomore at gmail.com. So thank you guys so much. Stay tuned. We got big stuff coming in July.